Hi, Fashion Dolls. It is the day before Thanksgiving, Wednesday, November 23rd, and today we have a legend in the dollhouse. He starred in over 100 films or more. And I'm super excited to have him here in the dollhouse. He is a legend in his own right, and you've known him for films such as Goodfellas and shows such as SWAT, How to Get Away with Murder, and This Is Us. I'm super excited to have the incredibly talented, the icon, the legend himself, Peter Onorati here in the dollhouse, ladies and gentlemen. So let me send this live to him so that we can get right into this interview. We're not going to waste no time today because I can't keep him. Everybody is trying to get ready for Thanksgiving as well as myself. And at 4 p.m., make sure you guys tune in for my exclusive interview with Rich Live. All right, Fashion Dolls, are you guys ready? Our next special guest, our guest for today, the first guest has starred in well over 100 or more TV and film credits, and he is from Boonton, New Jersey, and he is an icon in his own divine right. And he's also been on shows, which is one of my favorite, like Tales from the Crypt. So I'm super excited to have him here with me in the dollhouse, ladies and gentlemen. So we're waiting on Peter so that we can dive right into this interview today. And then joining me at 4 p.m., make sure you guys tune in for my exclusive sit down interview with Rich Live. He's going to be here at 4. So you guys are getting two shows today. So while we're waiting on our very special guest to pop in, make sure you guys share the live and let everyone know that Style by Stevie is here and in full effect. And make sure you guys head on over and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Style by Stevie Daytime, also as well. So while I'm looking for Peter, while I'm looking for him to add him to the live, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you guys share the live and let everyone know that we are on. That we are on and we are here. So I'm gonna share it with him again so that we can get him back in here because we just did a test live. Hey my love, welcome, welcome, welcome. And Friday, in case you guys missed it, we have Alwie, he's going to be joining me at 3, and then we have Justin F. Hollins at 4. So it's been a pretty great lineup this week. The fashions have been on point, and I want to give a very special shout out to Glam. Shout outs to Melanie Nella, my Bridges, for making sure that we are right each and every episode of Style by Stevie. Every time we come live, it's a different look, it's a different everything. I don't stay the same. I'm a chameleon. I love to change and evolve. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the icon himself, Mr. Peter Onorati, is here. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Onorati. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the dollhouse. It is such an honor to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks.
Oh my goodness. An icon like yourself. I've been watching you since Tales from the Crypt and of course Goodfellas. And you went on to do SWAT and This Is Us. And you went on also to work on How to Get Away with Murder. You've done over 100 or more TV and film credits. You have all of this under your belt. How does
Yeah,
it feel for
I had
you
to
as
pay,
an icon? Go ahead.
I had to pay for my kids' college.
Yes, and I was just about to say you're a father to three sons. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Yep.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You've done so much throughout your career. Your career is prolific. Do you ever go back in time and just reflect like, wow, all of these film credits because you have so many. I can't name them all. You've also done Desperate Housewives.
Yeah.
And your wife, Jeanette Collins, is also a writer as well too. And she did one of my favorites, Drop Dead Diva.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so many others, Big Love. So you
Yeah.
grew up in Boonton, New Jersey. Tell us about that.
Well, Boonton is a beautiful little town that's on a hill about 25 miles outside of New York City. And I used to sit on this rock on the top of the hill and see the New York skyline over the rolling Jersey hills. And I always wanted to be in there one day and do something of note in there. And I ended up kind of doing that, through a crazy backdoor way. I mean, I have my MBA. I was an advertising and publishing executive on Park Avenue, and never for a minute thought about being an actor, but was doing improvisation comedy around little hole in the walls in New York City. And I met my then girlfriend, now wife, and she one day said, "Well, I think you could be an actor." And I said, "Wow, so I can starve and have 4 jobs like you?" So, and once I took the ice pack off my eye, I thought she might be right. And so I quit and was very blessed and very lucky. But here's the interesting thing. When I left the business world, I thought maybe I'll just try commercials because I could sustain a character for 30 seconds. I had no acting training, just improvisation. And at that time, the stereotypes um, for casting commercials were the popular stereotypes for men were Bruce Willis, Bruce Springsteen, Billy
Uh,
Joel, and Tony Danza. So I sort of had a piece of each.
and another thing people don't know about you is that you've written with McCall's magazines. You've worked with Ford Motor Company as well too. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I started, I bounced around in the business world for 12 years. I started out in retailing, running a menswear store in a mall. And I ended up rekindling a friendship with an old high school buddy whose father was the head of Ford export division. And he offered me a job. And at the time I was going for my MBA, and we were based out of Newark, New Jersey. And so Ford stepped up and paid for the last 2/3 of my MBA, and then they laid me off because the automobile business was so bad back then. So I said, well, that's fine. You guys paid for my degree. If you don't want to use it, that's up to you. Well, the funny thing was at the time I was going out with a woman who was an art director for one of McCall's magazines. And I did my master's thesis as a project on that magazine. And I presented a 200-page research document and a 200-page annual marketing plan. So she said, why don't you just talk to my bosses? So I talked to them at McCall's. I presented them the project that I had done, and they hired me and created a position for me of director of marketing and research for 3 of their publications. So I got out of Newark and into New York City and started working there and doing improv, like I said. And then that old girlfriend, the art director, she dumped me, and Jeanette picked me up.
Look at you now.
Yeah,
Fast forward, you've landed the role as the Florida bookie in Goodfellas. Now, Goodfellas, for those of you who don't know, scored at least 47 million in box office.
yeah,
And not only that, but it's landed so many accolades, BAFTA awards, at least 5 each, working with Martin Scorsese and
yeah,
Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and I hate saying this, the late Ray Liotta. So
yeah,
it was an ensemble cast. So tell
yeah.
us, what was it like getting the call for the role of the Florida bookie for Goodfellas? Because this is
That's
a
really funny. It's funny that you should ask about that. That was my first big movie. I'd only been in the business a couple of years,
wow.
and I was just finishing my first television show. I was a recurring role on an old show called Kate and Allie. Um, and my wife and I, Jeanette and I, had already moved out to California, but I was flying back just to finish Kate and Allie. And Jeanette was pregnant with our first son, Sebastiano, who we call Sonny. Uh, and I was done filming the last episode of Kate and Allie on Thursday night. I was scheduled to fly back Friday at 2:30 from JFK in New York, and I got a call back for Scorsese in Rockefeller Center at 12:30. So I called Jeanette and I said, if I miss this plane, that's okay. I won't miss my son's birth, but he was due to be born that Monday. So
Wow.
so I went to the callback, and Scorsese did a funny thing at the time. For people who got small roles like I got, he gave everybody the same scenes to read, and then he would just pick one for you. The casting agent, Ellen, they would just pick a role for you. So he also at that time, for small roles like I got, he would hire real mobsters or ex-cops who chased real mobsters. So we all had the same scene to read. And I walked into the outer office. Now you're thinking I'm waiting to go home to see my son, to be at my son's birth. I walk in and there's all these guys with silver sweatsuits and patent leather sneakers, you know, and cigars. And one guy looks at me, he goes, "Hey, what are you reading for?" I go, "Well, I got the signs for Sonny Bamboo." He goes, "I know him. You don't look nothing like him." I said, "Well, that's what they gave me." He goes, "All right, kid, God bless you." Right? So then I go in to see Scorsese, and you know, I still had some of my business background. And one of the things in my business background for me was to always make the meeting mine, to take the nervousness out of it and make the meeting mine. So I've said, there's no better time to do that than with the greatest director, you know, on the
Oh, yeah.
planet. So I made up a story. Um, my grandfather's name is Donato Scoresi. It's the exact same spelling without an S. So I made up a story for Scorsese, and I said, you know, I need to ask you before we start if we're related, because I told my grandfather, Donato Scoresi, that I was going to read for the great director, Martin Scorsese. And my grandfather said, "Wow, I think so we have a cousin at one time which you
Mm.
taking the S out of the name." And Scorsese goes, "Really? Really? Because we can't find our relatives." And I'm going, "Oh man, I'm screwed. I'm screwed. I just made the whole story up, right?" So, he, so I said, "Well, where are you from?" He goes, "Oh, we're from Sicily." I go, "No freaking way. We're not Sicilians." He goes, "What are you?" I say, "Well, we're Napolitans." He goes, "Ah, you guys drink too early in the morning. You want to do this?" I go, "Yeah, let's do it." And so I did the scene, and I ended up getting a part.
And the rest was history. Goodfellas will go down as one of those mafia films like Scarface because it came out in
Yes.
1990, 1991.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then Tales of the Crypt was out during that time as well too. You got the call to do that
yeah,
episode. What was that like getting the call to do that episode? Because that's also a cult
yeah,
classic show that everyone knows till this
yeah.
day.
Well, you know, I had just come when I moved out here. Stephen Bochco made a leading man out of me, and I did two series for him. And at the end of my second series, actually, I did four for him. That came two came after. I went back on NYPD Blue for a little while,
Oh
and
yeah.
then another two others. But after my second series, that was mine with Mariel Hemingway. I got the call to do this Tales from the Crypt, and it was a pretty prestigious project at the time. They offered me the role, and I said yes. And then I realized that there was completely naked, hardcore boning on the floor in these scenes, and I went,
Yes.
I never did this before. I don't know, you know, I'm not sure how to do this, you know, and everybody thinks that it's such a great thing. It's like when I did an episode of Sex in the City where I had five sex scenes with Kim Cattrall. Everybody, you know, my old friends from the neighborhood are like, "Hey, how was that? How was that?" I said, "This is one of the worst things you could ever do." I said, because here you are completely naked in some cases, and trying to make love, or in the case of Tales from the Crypt, it was more cathartic, hardcore, you know, boning. But you're trying to affect the actress you're with. If you're making love to them or whatever, you want to do things that make them involved with you, but yet you don't want to go too far, because
Right.
then they, you know, word gets around, oh, he's a dog, you know. So it's probably the hardest thing on the planet to do, to affect the actress, but not go all the way with, or close to all the way with everything, you know, to protect your career, you know. So it's a really, really hard thing, but it was a wonderful episode, and it's really, I don't use the word iconic. with me. I thank you for using it. But that particular episode was a Halloween episode, so it became quite iconic. And Sherry, um, Sherry Williams. Oh my gosh, can't remember her last name, but she is an accomplished actress, and she was fantastic in it. And we tried to make each other feel comfortable. I said to her, um, I actually made up this saying, and I said the same thing to Kim Cattrall. I said, listen, before we start, I would like to apologize for the presence or the lack of a response to this situation, because I'm no hero and you're not ugly. So, and she said, that's great. She goes, okay, we can do this. And it was hard. I mean, it was hard, but it was a great episode. It turned out fun.
And yes, you say you don't consider yourself as an icon. I do, because you've had, with over 100 film credits or more under your belt, that is icon status. You've
Thank
done the work and you've been in the game for so long to where you've landed roles on shows. And I've seen some in the comments. People were talking about your role on SWAT as
you.
Jeff Mumford. And you've
Yeah,
also done This Is Us, Stanley Pearson,
right.
and you've done How to Get Away with Murder with the lovely Viola Davis. So you
Yeah,
went on to do so much with your career on these hit television shows. Now,
yeah.
let's talk SWAT. Jeff Mumford. Do you remember where you were when you got the call for this role? Because you're working on this show alongside Shamar Moore, who was one of my
Right.
favorite actors as well. Yeah.
Well, that's it. That's another actually great story. And by the way, I changed the name to Jack Mumford in honor of my father-in-law who passed away while I was
Um,
filming. So, when they call me it's listed as Jeff. It's not corrected, but just because, just to to pay homage to my father-in-law. But
yes.
I had auditioned for the role of Buck, which was in the pilot episode and in a couple more, and I didn't hear anything. Um, so I went to New York to see family and spend some time. At that time, my father was on like a 5-year battle after a stroke. So I would go back 2, 3
Um,
times a year to help with his care. So I was back there, and I was in New York City staying with a cousin. And I got a call from my agents, and they said, listen, you have to get somewhere, and we're going to send you some scenes, and you have to videotape for this other character, Mumford. And I said, I'm at my cousin's house on 125th Street. I can't get to, it's 5 o'clock. I can't get any place to video unless you call my agents, blah, blah, blah. I said, I can't do it. I said, if they'll wait till tomorrow, that'll be great. And she said, oh, I'll call you back. And I said, okay. She calls me back. She goes, they can't wait till tomorrow, but I'll tell you what they're going to do. They're going to use your audition for Buck to test against other people who are reading for Mumford. I said, okay. I said, what the hell? She goes, but you have to sign these test contracts. So they faxed me to a copy shop downstairs from my cousin's place, contracts, and I signed them and sent them, because you can't even test without a contract in place. Uh, so I get a call an hour later. They obviously didn't test it at all. They said, you got the role. We want you on the plane. We want you to be at the reading tomorrow. And I went, that means I got to take an overnight flight back. So I thought, well, they did a solid by me by casting me without doing another tape and stuff. So I flew home right from my cousin's apartment. I didn't even go see my parents. I flew home and read the role, and we did it, and it was great. It was, for me, it was fantastic, because uh, I I loved, it was the first time I ever played the old man, and I loved it. And also, I work out a lot, but this gave me something to get in shape for.
oh
So I,
yeah.
I even, I trained a little harder. We all trained and did regular SWAT training. And Shamar is, you know, um, when you have a cast of a show, they have numbers on the call sheet, 1 through whatever. In
Yeah.
case of SWAT, it's 1 through 6 or however many people. Shamar is number one on the call sheet. And I would have to say that up until I did the rookie, I would say that Shamar was probably the best number one on a call sheet that I had ever worked with, because he really was interested in keeping spirits of the crew up. He would do
Yes,
something every lunchtime. He was really good about that stuff, you know. And we got along. In fact, he lives right around the corner from. So you know yeah. And in fact, Shamar was just over here a week ago Friday, because Alex Russell got married here at my house. So I have a pretty big house with a big lot that you don't see in LA, and I offered it to Alex and his wife Diana, um, and they actually wanted to do the wedding ceremony at their house that they bought, but they needed a place to have a rehearsal dinner. So
yes.
everybody who wasn't invited to the wedding came to rehearsal dinner. And Shamar came over. He goes, "Man, I live 2 blocks. I know where you live, man." I said, "Oh, the neighbors are telling me that Shamar's too damn loud." So yeah, so he invited me over for the gender revealing of his baby. I didn't make it because I had something else to go to that day. But so we live close together, and David Lim lives right around the corner. Um, so there's the three of us are close here. And there's another guy, Odie, who plays Sergeant Stevens. He's
Yes.
our technical director. Odie's in an apartment very close to here too. Odie's over all the time. He's a great guy, and he's the real guy. You know, his name is Odie Gallup, and he plays Sergeant Stevens. Um, so it was a great opportunity for me. I wish I had stayed on full for at least another full season. That's only a money thing, because I want to buy a little house in Italy so my sons and their wives and my grandchildren can spend some time over there. Had I gotten that second full season, that would have been what I would have done with it. Um, and also, and I've heard people say this to me, so I'll say it to you. That show sort of needed the character of Mumford, because there was no one else with the gravitas to challenge Shamar, to give him some acting to do, because he has to take orders from everybody else. He has to take orders from Patrick's character. He had to take orders from Stephanie, who was his girlfriend at the time in the first season. There was no one at his level in the organization that could challenge him except for Mumford. And it was great to have old school versus new school. So, and I've seen a lot of comments about that. It was a shame that sort of went away. Even Odie said, "Oh no, man," he said, this could have been really fun. You could have been, challenging him about having a girl on his team, that old school stuff. And I even did an episode where Lena and I partnered together. It was a great episode, and she kind of took over, and this whole recognition of like, wow, this chick knows what she's doing. And it was very cool. So there was a lot of that stuff, but I guess they just wanted more time to blow up shit, you know. you know. But I still see Alex, I still see Stephanie and Lena, and that's it. And like I said, Shamar's around the corner, but we don't hang.
And it's so good because you have your cast all around you, surrounded around you. And that way it's been like, okay, you're able to keep in touch with your castmate. That was going to
Yeah,
be my next question for you, but you already covered it.
yeah,
Now, This Is Us, which is also an award winning show. And I mean,
yeah,
you've got Sherilyn K. Brown on there, you've got Mandy Moore, and so many others. You
yeah.
played the role of Stanley Pearson. Now, I
Right.
know this must have been very, very challenging for you. So tell us the process of you getting into character for this character, Stanley Pearson.
So Stanley, this is really interesting because Stanley's not the bad guy that everybody sees him as. And so I wouldn't play him that way. Stanley is a father in the 50s and
Mhm.
60s. I, my father, you know, brought me up in the 50s and 60s. And except for the drinking problem, my father was exactly like Stanley. He worked hard all day. He put the paycheck on the table and he sat down and watched TV. He didn't even drink a beer, my old man, but he had, he had dinner. My mother made dinner. I mean, that's people look at Stanley through the prism of today's child rearing and today's values. You can't do that. Stanley, like I said, except for the drinking problem and some of the abuses that come with that, Stanley was a regular guy of that time period. So many fathers were like that. Um, and I remember one time we were shooting this one scene. It's the first reveal of Nicky's character as a little boy. Um, and we stop at a bait shop, and I find out there's beer in there, and I start drinking. The two directors that were directing that episode said, "Oh my God, you leave your kids in the car?" And I said, "My father was a stonemason and had a small construction
Mhm.
company with my uncle. My father would take me on estimates that he would go to get a job. And I sit in that car for an hour sometimes or outside the car. That's what fathers did back then. If they took the kids with them and they couldn't be involved, they left them in the car. It wasn't a big deal. But you can't look at it through the prism of the 2000s or the 1990s or the 80s or the 70s. It's just not like that. And my father was a great man, and so was my uncle. And I remember writing my parents, my uncle and my father, a letter one time after I had my three sons were born, and I had them for a couple of years, and I wrote them a thank you letter. I said, "Listen, without all the information that we now have on parenting and everything else, you guys did a pretty good job. You know, so thank you. You know." Because they didn't have anything to go on except what their parents did, and their parents were from the old country. They weren't even Americans. They became citizens. So that's the thing about Stanley. Stanley never thought, and the greatest thing, and also the saddest thing, is that if you see some of those episodes, you see in the beginning when she was pregnant with Nikki, that Stanley's an upright guy, and he didn't drink to start out with. His father was a drunk. And they never really, I wish, because it would have been a great tribute to the character, to pay off by showing the moment that turned him into a drinker. Because he says to his father says, "You want to sip?" He goes, "Come on, Pop, I don't drink." You know. And also another great thing about that was I went to school in central Pennsylvania, in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and I went to school with a bunch of guys from Pittsburgh. So I got to do my Pittsburgh accent in that show. You know, it was a lot of fun, and they let me do it. They said, "Man, it's right on the money. Go for it."
So you got to tap a little bit into your channel, a little bit of your father into this character.
Absolutely.
So I know it must have been difficult for you being able to go back to that place, say, family and things like that. But this show is powerful, and this
Yes.
particular character is powerful also, and has
Yes.
made an impact that everyone will still stand the test of time to remember. So
Right.
yeah,
Well, the power of that show to me was that it showed everybody
yes,
that we all have this, pardon the expression, shit in our past. And some people overcome it. Some people take it to the grave with them. Some people, like Milo's character, they overcome it and they become what is perceived as a better father, you know, from what they were shown. But some people don't. Some people die with those demons. And that was the beauty of This Is Us, showing those flashbacks, showing what people came from, and showing how many of them rose above their condition and how many of them couldn't.
absolutely. All right, fashion dolls are going to get on a lighter note here because I can't keep here. We're both in the process of getting ready for the holidays. So I'm gonna ask you just some quick questions, and then
Sure,
we're gonna take some from the audience as well too.
sure.
Would you ever create your own show? Would you ever step behind the lens? Because as I mentioned, your wife Jeanette, she is a writer and she's produced shows such as Big Love and my
Yeah.
favorite, Drop Dead Diva. So would you step behind the lens and create shows and platforms?
I have written um, two shows for myself. One I wrote on my own, and the other I wrote with a partner. The one I wrote with a partner had to do with Customs and Border Patrol and ICE. That was a
Mm,
great shot. We pitched it at Fox. We had big guns pitching. We had executive producer from 24 and all that stuff, but it didn't get sold. The other one I wrote was a really fun show. Um, but so yeah, I mean, if the opportunity came, I been offered uh, the job of directing, but I don't know the equipment. I don't know the lenses, and I don't know. I'd be a good creative director. I can work with actors. I coach actors. I can be in their heads and help them. But but technically, I wouldn't want to put that on my director of photography. I wouldn't want to say, "Hey, here's what I want. You figure it out." Because that never works out. I've seen that happen before. So directing, no. But I'd love to have one of the series that I've written picked up. I also wrote a play. Um, I'm a member of the Actors Studio. Don't know if you know them, but that's where De Niro and Pacino and all those guys are members in New York City. Um, I was a member of the Actors Unit when I first got into acting. And then I just presented my play to them a couple of years ago, and they admitted me to the Playwright Directors Unit. So I have written a play too. So I think if I was going to be on the other side, it would certainly be as a writer. Uh, I'd love to direct, but I don't feel qualified.
well, I'm pretty sure Jeanette will be there to help and every step of the way,
Yep.
100%. Now, what is one thing that people would not know about you that would surprise people?
Uh, that I'm insecure about a lot of things. I think
Mm,
that's what makes me a decent actor is that uh, I'll always see somebody who I'd like to be like, or who has some part of their character that I would like to have. Um, are there ways that I haven't measured up to my goals? I wanted to be a professional football player. Um, but so I mean, I think I have insecurities like everybody else. I don't know if anybody would if that would surprise anybody, but I think that's what makes actors aware and able to learn from anybody. If you're insecure, if you're egotistical, or even less than that, if you're totally secure with yourself,
okay.
sometimes you think you can't learn from anybody. I think insecurity is a gift in some ways if you stay open to learning from people, and how to solve those insecurities if that's ever possible.
I love what Susan Smith just said. She said, insecurity begets creativity.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
And I have two more questions. And then if you guys have any questions, feel free to type them in the comments. And then we're going to conclude because I can't keep Peter. Everybody's in the process. You guys know
By the
what day
way,
it is
by the way,
tomorrow.
I know Susan Smith. She's one of my best friend's sisters. She's a great artist and great singer. So you should check out her Instagram too.
I'm going to pin her comment. Insecurity begets creativity. I absolutely love that. And that brings me, I'm glad that she said that because that brings me to my next question. What is something that you would tell your 14-year-old self getting into the acting world and the acting business? Because I know you went to school for, you were playing sports and you earned your BMA and BFA and all of these things. So, what is something that you would tell your 14-year-old self?
Um, so my degrees are not in acting. I don't really have any training, and I would tell somebody who's younger. First thing I would tell them in terms of technique, I would
Mm,
say start in improvisation. Improvisation opens up your mind and will open you up to the creativity that exists in the moment. And improvisation is also something that is good for life, because the basic tenet of improvisation is to take what you have and heighten and explore it in a positive. It's the old quote, yes, and. You answer yes and to what you're given, and you add to it. That's what I would tell any 14-year-old. Try and think of your life in terms of yes and from now on, and see how much further you go in any
Yeah.
discipline, acting for sure, but in any discipline, yes, and I would also say to my 14-year-old self, don't worry, it's going to be okay. you know,
And the next question is, what are three things that you're looking forward to tomorrow? Because as we all know, we know what tomorrow is. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and it's all
right?
about the family. Everybody's cooking. I know my father's out there making some stuff. I
Yeah.
know I'm in charge of macaroni this year. So, what are three things that you're looking forward to tomorrow?
Well, first, that all my boys are here. My family will be here, and all their wives. Um, Second is the antipasto that I'm going to make, which I don't eat but once or twice a year because of certain things that are not on my diet. And the third thing is my godson is a chef, and he's making a pasta and a marinara sauce to go with the turkey.
Okay.
So, you know, it's a food day, so the three things would have to be close to that.
And we got a question from Kimberly Cran. She wants to know, are any of your children interested in acting?
My oldest son, Sonny, is a voice actor and a voice engineer. He did some anime work. He's looking to get involved in animation. He's also a really good on-camera actor with,
Hmm.
again, no training. So he needs to get some training if he wants to do that. But he's a much better actor at his age than I was at that age. Um, my other two sons are one is a therapist, a marriage and family therapist, and the other one works for Heal the Bay in San Francisco. So he's our tree hugger, uh, and he's uh, he does videos at times, video presentations for education and stuff. So I hope that a little bit of our acting and our improvisation, especially for my therapist son, will filter in to their work as it is, because it would only help what they do. But my oldest Sonny, he's more into the voice acting. And he's amazing. I mean, he's got an ear. He can do any accent way more than I can do. He does characters. He married a woman from South Africa, and you he's fooled South Africans with his accent, and he fooled Alex Russell's family with his Australian accent and stuff. So it was, he's. I think he's got a good shot at that, but that's a very closed career, very hard to get into, almost like music.
We have another legendary guest in the building. You guys want to know who? I've interviewed this woman. This woman is like one of my favorite supermodels. If you're a fashion girl like me, she says she's a fan of your work. Ladies and gentlemen, Cara Young, who is one of Revlon's unforgettable women. She's went on to work with Maybelline and
Wow.
CoverGirl and walk in Chanel. Peter, she says she loves your work.
Oh man, that's incredible. Thank you. Jeez.
Yes. Let's see, we had another question for you. Tom wants to know, what are you working on next?
Um, so at this point, I'm just fielding whatever auditions come in. I don't have anything on the table. Um, I just got over a year of my boys getting married, like three weddings, one in South Africa and stuff, and two here. So I was preparing the property. So I kind of chilled out a little bit, but I'm working on whoever wants me to work on something. I'm looking for another series. I want one more series so I can get that house in Italy, and you all could come and visit me.
Okay. Manifestation, manifestation. My last question for you. And you guys have any last minute questions? I'm gonna take two more, and then we're gonna conclude because I can't keep Peter, ladies and gentlemen. He has family. We planned this during the summer, and wow, it's happening to fruition. Cara says you are a true actor.
Oh man. All right, tell her come over for martinis on a Friday night.
Definitely, definitely. And I think she's in the LA area. So, Cara, did you hear that? Yeah. um, my last question for you. 2023. We're closing out 2022 halfway at the end of this year, going into 2023. What is something that you're manifesting for 2023?
Um, well, I I am I have a big birthday coming up next year, so I want to manifest that which will bring me to my full potential in
Mm,
that year. Whatever it is, if it's my career, if it's my family, if it's a change in careers to writing, or whatever it is, I I I want to be. I want to manifest. Getting older. I want to get healthy. I want to stay healthy. I just, I want to be there for those who need me. That's,
yeah, your
I
family.
can't, being an actor all these years, I can't plan anything, you know, I can only, only broad strokes about, just do some good, do some good.
Absolutely, because we've lost so many legends throughout the years, like
Yeah.
Betty White. The list goes on and on. And when Ray passed away, I was just like, this is
Yeah.
unbelievable because I remember he did the show with um, Jennifer Lopez,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that was picked up, and so many others, and of course, Goodfellas. So we've
Yeah.
lost so many people throughout this year. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that you that sticks with people.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, Ray was a Jersey guy. He grew up a few miles away from me.
What is one thing that he's told you on the set of Goodfellas that you remember about him?
Well, we did have one conversation because let's face it, it was 3 in the morning and we were in Brooklyn. Uh, at the time, in my estimation, as talented as Ray is, his best performance was a movie called Dominic and Eugene. If you have a chance, look that up. And some people I knew were in the movie with him. But Dominic and Eugene is a story about Ray and his brother, played by Tom Holt, who
Yes.
is challenged, mentally challenged. And it's a wonderful story. And that same year, Rain Man came out, right? So I was sitting there at 3 o'clock in the morning and I said to Ray, I said, Ray, and remember now, I was new in the business. I had only been in the business a couple of years. I said, Ray, what? I mean, Rain Man's okay. It's, but I said, Dominic and Eugene was such a better movie on the same subject. And he looks at me and he goes, are you kidding me? Barry Levinson, Tom Cruise, Dustin Hoffman, Ray Liotta. I said, okay, I get it. Um, but that was a lesson in the business. He was in the biggest movie ever now, but when he did that, which was just a year or two before, uh, you know, Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman, with another tangential story, beat him out. Nobody's ever heard of Dominic and Eugene.
An ensemble cast. And Cara says it's like a mouse and me.
Yeah, yeah, yes, yeah.
Any other questions before we conclude Fashion Dolls? DTF Lon says you ain't going nowhere, brother. Love you, man. Maybe we can
That's
create a 2023 cop rock together.
yeah, I did an interview. My only other interview like this on this phone I did with D Teflon, you know. So, it's that's great. That's great.
Happy Thanksgiving, Cara, and tell Christy and everyone I said hello. Again, she's worked with some of the top models from Naomi Campbell, Cindy Crawford, Christy
Right.
Turlington. How does that feel to know that you in the fashion world you've made an impact? Also, Peter, and the models are watching your work.
That's pretty good because I mean that's kind of like I think Billy Joel said it best when somebody asked him, why he went from classic piano to rock and roll, and he went like this: chicks, man. So somebody, I have this theory that your sexuality is a function of those people who are attracted to you.
Mm,
Uh, so somebody like that being attracted to my work or recognizing my work, shit, that's an ego builder, man.
yes, you are a legend in your own right, and I'm so honored that I got to speak with you and take a few minutes of your time. I can't keep him, ladies and gentlemen. I wish we could, but everyone is saying Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And thank you for this. It was really, really wonderful.
You are so welcome. Are there any final words of encouragement? Because we talked a little bit about manifesting for 2023. The last closing word that you would give to people during these holidays.
Do good, but don't expect it to come back to you. It will.
Mm. All right, fashion dolls. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Onorati, it was such an honor to have you here. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Send
Thank
Jeanette my love.
you. I
And
will.
make sure you guys go and check out Goodfellas. It is out there. I'm pretty sure Netflix and everywhere has it. It is a classic. You guys need to go and check it out. It is out there. And stream all of his projects. SWAT, This Is Us. It is out there in the Uverse as well too.
You know what, too? If anybody wants to see clips, you can go to my website, peteronorati.com. My friend Jerry Gill put all the clips of my work up on that, in the video section. So,
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. So make sure you guys follow Mr. Peter Honorati, the icon himself. Supermodel Kara Young, my dear best friend. We have developed such a rapport after we did our interview. So make sure you guys follow these icons, and I'm honored to have them here on this platform. So thank you again, Peter.
ciao. Thank you.
And coming up next, ladies and gentlemen, Rich Live will be joining me at 4. Take care, everyone.